الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة أما بعد. So as we continue discussing the book Bulugh al-Maram by Hafiz Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah, and we're still discussing Kitab al-Tahara and discussing in Kitab al-Tahara the chapter or the bab that he has titled Bab Adab Qada al-Haja, or in some texts it mentioned Bab Qada al-Haja, so matters pertaining to a person relieving of oneself and the rules regarding this matter and certain guidelines that one should pay attention to. Then we'll be discussing another hadith regarding this discussion, where he mentioned the hadith of Jabir ibn Abdullah anhu, and we'll discuss the matters that relevant matters that relates to this particular hadith. So we have the hadith read, and then we'll discuss the hadith.
Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. Hadith 82, narrated Jabir radiallahu anhu. Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, when two people go together to relieve themselves, each one of them should conceal himself from the other and do not talk, for Allah detests that. Reported by Ahmad, Ibn Asqalani and Ibn Al-Qattan graded it Sahih, authentic, but it is defective.
So that's the hadith that is mentioned by the author rahimahullah. So the hadith mentioned an Jabir radiyallahu anhu قال قال رسول الله عليه الصلاة والسلام إذا تغوت رجلان فليتوارث كل واحد منهما عن صاحبه ولا يتحدثا فإن الله يمقت على ذلك رواه وصححه ابن السكن وابن القطان وهو معلول. So this is the hadith that has been mentioned by the author rahimahullah, where he mentioned this hadith of Jabir radiyallahu anhu. So the first of those things that we'll discuss is the takhrij of the hadith. So as for the takhrij of the hadith that he mentioned here, this is the hadith of Jabir, and he stated concerning the hadith as to where you find that there's a discussion between those who have explained Bulugh al-Maram regarding what is stated here by Ibn Hajar rahimahullah regarding the sources are those who have collected this hadith, where he mentioned rawahu wa sahhahu Ibn Sakan. So they mentioned here rawahu, that as mentioned by some of them, Sheikh Abdullah Fawzan, he mentioned that you have a difference in the manuscript of this particular hadith as to the reference regarding hadith, where some mention rawahu was while other mention, in some mention rawahu Ahmad. So it mentioned here regarding that he stated rawahu without per se specifying which are the sources of books of hadith that have collected this hadith. And in some of the manuscript of this hadith, it mentioned rawahu Ahmad. That hadith is mentioned or found in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad rahimahullah. So overall, you have that discussion that it is unclear as to when it mentioned rawahu, and that it didn't mention the sources, or the sources are mentioned when it mentioned rawahu, or mentioned rawahu wa sahhahu Ibn Sakan, as we'll discuss also. So you have a discussion regarding did he mention or not mention the sources that have collected this hadith. Then also have a discussion regarding concerning hadith, as this hadith, it has been mentioned by various sources. So this hadith have been mentioned by various sources, but they have mentioned, the sources that have mentioned this hadith, that they have mentioned that the hadith will go back to Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, not to Jabir ibn Abdullah. So of those who have narrated, collected this hadith, but they have stated this hadith as being a hadith that is narrated by Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu anhu. So of them, we have Ahmad, also Abu Dawud, Ibn Majah, where they have referenced that this hadith has been a reference to those sources, not per se on the authority of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, not Jabir ibn Abdullah. So on this, you find concerning the hadith that is mentioned here by Abu Dawud and also Ahmad in his Musnad, where they are mentioned with Isnad, where it mentioned that حدثني أبو سعيد قال سمعت رسول الله عليه الصلاة والسلام يقول لا يخرج رجلان يضربان الغائط كاشفان عن عورتهما يتحدثان فإن الله تعالى يمقت على ذلك. So that's the narration of the hadith that is found in Sunan Abu Dawud and also Musnad of Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, from the hadith of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, not the hadith of Jabir. Also you find in Ibn Majah a slight difference in wording, where it's also the hadith of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radhiyallahu anhu, where he mentioned that أن رسول الله عليه السلام قال لا يتناجى الإثنين, that both two persons should not speak together privately على غائطهما, while they are in the act of fulfilling the call of nature. ينظر كل واحد منهما, where each are observing, looking at the other, إلى عورة صاحبي, on the is the other person's private areas. فقال فإن الله يمقت على ذلك, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is angry or displeased with this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is angry with this act, or severely angered by this. So that's concerning narration that I found. So you find slight difference in wording of hadith, but the narration that is mentioned, that is the hadith is attributed to Jabir, but you find most of the more renowned source of books of hadith that they have attributed hadith to Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. So also you find that even San'ani I mentioned regarding concerning hadith also go back to Abu Sa'id al-Khudri and others. Also he mentioned that this hadith, as he mentioned the sources, rawahu وصحه ابن سكن وابن قطان وهو معلوم. So he mentioned that this hadith, that also it could be taken as that the hadith here, that it can be that hadith is collected by rawahu وصحه ibn Sakan with hadith. It goes back, this hadith can be found in a collection of Ibn Sakan. So as for Ibn Sakan, that As-San'ani, that in his explanation he mentioned regarding Ibn Sakan, that is concerned, he mentioned, he explained, huwa hafiz, hujjah, Abu Ali, Sa'id ibn Uthman ibn Sa'id ibn Sakan, Baghdadi, Nazir, Misr. So he mentioned that as for Ibn Sakan, who is, that is Abu Ali, his name, Sa'id ibn Uthman ibn Sa'id ibn Sakan, al-Baghdadi, and he settled in Misr. Then he mentioned that when he was born, that he born ولد سنة 94 و200, that he died here 297. Then he mentioned that after that concern that he died, as he mentioned here, توفى سنة 53 و300, that he died 353. He died here 353 al-Hijri. As for also what has been said regarding Ibn Sakan, that as for Ibn Sakan, that he have written some books in hadith, so of those of the ulama of hadith, and that he have written, they mention a book which is Sahih Ibn Sakan. He have written a book, Sahih Ibn Sakan. So a book that he stipulated that the hadith that he collected, that they are authentic, as done by others. So Ibn Sakan rahimahullah, that he have collected a book, he has his own collection of hadith, and it is related to hadith being authentic. And this hadith is found in this particular collection, as mentioned by Ibn Qattan. Then he mentioned that as for Ibn Sakan, collected the hadith and also he authenticated the hadith. And second, that he mentioned Ibn Qattan, that also Ibn Qattan, of those who hold the hadith to be authentic, who authenticate the hadith. So as for Ibn Qattan, that also As-San'ani, that he mentioned as Ibn Qattan, he mentioned Ibn Qattan والحافظ العلامة أبو الحسن علي ibn Muhammad ibn Abd al-Malik al-Farisi Shahir bi Ibn Qattan. So this is Ibn Qattan rahimahullah ta'ala, that his name is kunya Abu al-Hasan, his name is Ali ibn Muhammad ibn Abd al-Malik Farisi, and also they mention Fasi. So this concerning Ibn Qattan rahimahullah ta'ala, Ibn Qattan rahimahullah tabara. I would say he is well known as Ibn Qattan. As for Ibn Qattan rahimahullah, that he have several books of his more renowned books that he has, that of several books, and 3 books that he has that are in print are very important books in their field. So of those books, he has a book that is a takhrij of the hadith in Ahkam al-Kubra by the Ahkam al-Kubra by Abdul Haq al-Ishbili. So he has a book that is a checking verification of the hadith in the book Ahkam al-Kubra. And Ahkam al-Kubra, it is by Abdul Haq al-Ishbili rahimahullah ta'ala, where he has these Ahkam al-Sugra wal-Kubra wal-Awsat. So Sahih Ibn Qattan went to do some checking, some work around al-Kubra. And also that book that he wrote, that it is referred to as Al-Wam wal-Iham. Al-Wam wal-Iham. So that's the book that he kind of somewhat, or Bayan Al-Wam wal-Iham min kitab fil kitab al-Ahkam. So he kind of somewhat mentions some of the errors and incorrect information, or errors that are mentioned in the book of Ahkam al-Kubra by Abdul Haq al-Ishbili. So that's one book that he has, and an important book that is in print. It comes in several volumes. Also, he has another book that is called Al-Iqna. So Iqna fi al-Masahil al-Ijma. So also Ibn Qattan al-Fasi, that he has this book that is called Al-Iqna fi Masahil al-Ijma, where he gathered this book, or Masahil al-Ijma, that his book is it discusses concerning matter that relates to Masail al-Ijma, things regarding that there are consensus between the ulama on that particular matter. So he has this book, and also that book is in print, and also important book in the field of Ijma. And also of a third of the book that he have written that is in print, he wrote a book that is called Ahkam an-Nadhar fi Ahkam an-Nadhar fi Ahkam an-Nadhar. Ahkam an-Nadhar fi Ahkam an-Nadhar. And this book, this book that it discusses matters pertaining to Ahkam an-Nadhar, regarding viewing and looking at things. What are the ahkam that relate to this matter? And as we mentioned, all these three books are in print. All these three books of Ibn Qattan is in print, and important works in their respective field. They mentioned regarding concern that also Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, that they have mentioned that, that he benefit from a book that is called what is called Al-Ilmam by Ibn Daqiq al-Eid. So Al-Ilmam by Ibn Daqiq al-Eid rahimahullah, and Ibn Daqiq al-Eid rahimahullah, that he died here 702. He died here 702, and he mentioned this particular hadith. So when he mentioned this particular hadith, also in the Bab he mentioned Bab Adab Qada al-Haja. Then he kind of somewhat, as there's some of the ulama take the view that Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, that this book of Bulugh Maram, it's like condensing the book of Ibn Daqiq al-Eid. So it's like a summary, or he kind of somewhat worked around the book of Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, that he benefited a lot, and may have summarized with a few addition the work of Ibn Daqiq al-Eid. And if you look in this particular book, you find a lot of similarities. Where when Ibn Daqiq al-Eid rahimahullah, when he mentioned this hadith, he mentioned and Jabir ibn Abdullah radiyallahu anhuma قال رسول الله عليه السلام إذا تغوت رجلان فليوارث كل واحد منهما عن صاحبه ولا يتحدثان عن طوقهما فإن الله يمقت على ذلك. So he mentioned this hadith, and he mentioned أخرجه حافظ أبو علي ibn Sakan وصححه حافظ أبو الحسن ibn Qattan. So you can somewhat you find that there are similarities regarding what is mentioned here. So he mentioned this hadith أخرجه حافظ Abu Ali ibn Sakan. So Ibn Daqiq al-Eid, that he references hadith to being of the hadith that is collected by Ibn Sakan. He references the hadith as being collected by Ibn Sakan. So as we mentioned, that this particular hadith of Jabir Abdullah is not found in the books of hadith that mention this hadith. The books of the other books, the more renowned books of hadith of Ahmad, Abu Dawud, Ibn Majah, when they mention hadith, that they mention hadith as the hadith of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, not the hadith of Jabir. So Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, that I mentioned, but the hadith is found as Ibn Qattan, when he mentioned this hadith, that he mentioned this hadith with an isnad going back to Ibn Sakan. They mentioned, so after this that discussion, where as we mentioned the hadith of Jabir and also hadith of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, similar in meaning, that are there, then they mentioned that as for this hadith, as mentioned by Ibn Hajar, mentioned وَهُوَ مَعْلُولٌ. هُوَ مَعْلُولٌ. So they mentioned regarding concerning that ma'lul fi illah is a terminology used by the ulama of hadith, indicating concerning fi illah. They mentioned that ulama mentioned here that this particular hadith, that it have over ثلاثة علل. It has over 3 different ilal that relates to this particular hadith. So they mentioned that al-ilal or ma'lul is regarding concerning that the hadith mentioned sabab ta'an fil hadith, that these are reasons for the hadith to be criticized, or fihi sabab ad-da'f al-hadith, or reason for the hadith to be considered to be da'if, or adam al-qabul. So these al-ilal indicating that this hadith, these are factors that will contribute to the hadith being considered to be unacceptable, not mardud, rejected, or not authentic, and have these weaknesses. So they mentioned the first of the 3 weaknesses that are mentioned regarding this hadith. They mentioned al-ittirab. So they mentioned ittirab regarding concerning our riwayat Ikrama ibn Ammar. So Ikrama ibn Ammar, that narrated an Yahya ibn Abi Kathir, that they mentioned regarding concerning, the ulama have criticized this, where they mentioned regarding concerning that, so you find the ulama have criticized that is ittirab, where they mentioned that this Ikrima, that at times he narrate the hadith upon Yahya, at times he narrate the hadith on Abi Salama and Abu Hurairah. So you find that they said ittirab, that there's somewhat some form of confusion as to who is narrating upon. So a lot of differences, ikhtilaf. So ittirab, that there's differences between regarding who that person is narrating upon. So there's a form of confusion. So it's unclear as to who, at times they narrate upon this person, or at times they narrate upon this other person. So it seems to be some form of confusion or some form of ikhtilaf or difference regarding the people that is narrating upon in that isnad, as mentioned by Ad-Daraqutni. So Daraqutni rahimullah, of those who mentioned that there's ittirab in this narration, we find that a difference that cannot be worked out. Also Abu Dawud rahimullah, when he mentioned this hadith, that he mentioned هذا hadith هذا لم يسنده إلا إكرمة ibn Ammar, indicating the hadith is only narrated by, is it infirad, by way of a single narrator, whose Iqra ad narration of Ikrama ibn Ammar. But others, so I mentioned that, indicating the hadith is da'if. Then I mentioned regarding concerning of others who have somewhat narrated the hadith regarding this matter. The second of the illah of the hadith, Jahala Hilal ibn Iyad. So one of the narrators, his name is Hilal ibn Iyad, that at-Taqrib was by Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, that he mentioned in Taqrib that this is the book that he give a summary of each of the narrators of Kutubu Sitta, and also pass some judgment on them regarding their level of concerning a jar wa ta'dil. So he give his final judgment on each narrator of Kutubu Sitta outside of the Sahaba in this book of At-Taqrib. So he mentioned, as for this person, Hilal ibn Iyad, he mentioned majhul min al-thalitha. Tafarrad Yahya ibn Abi Kathir bi riwayat anhu. Then he mentioned this person is majhul. So at the point that he mentioned that this narrator, Hilal ibn Iyad, is majhul, is unknown, meaning concerning not having enough sufficient evidence about him regarding jar wa ta'dil. So there's no mention of matters regarding him, regarding those who have praised or those who have said anything of disparaging statement regarding him. So nothing for or against him regarding jar wa ta'dil. And maybe one person have narrated upon him, or a few people have narrated upon him. So that's considered to be majhul. Then they mentioned that, and also they mentioned that the person's actual name, this narrator, Hilal ibn Iyad, that his actual name is Iyad ibn Hilal. So flip, it is turned around. Iyad ibn Hilal, that they mention that this is his name, and this is what is mentioned by Imam al-Bukhari, Abu Hatim al-Razi, and third, Khatib al-Baghdadi, and others, that this person who is Hilal ibn Iyad, his actual name is Iyad ibn Hilal. That it is stated that Ibn Qattan, when he discusses hadith in Bayan al-Wam wal-Iham, that he mentioned that this is one of the stronger criticism against the hadith, that this is regarding this person, that is one of the stronger of the criticism regarding this particular hadith. That I mentioned, I said, so you have mentioned that the first criticism regarding ittirab fil as-sanad. Then I mentioned also as ittirab fil matan. So regarding concerning in the text of the hadith, the wording of the hadith, also you have some discrepancy regarding this matter. So you have some discussion regarding some differences regarding the wording of the hadith. So I mentioned that in some narration of the hadith, it mentioned regarding that displeasure regarding takashuf wa tahadduth, regarding these two things, the person who expose themselves to others, takashuf, and also tahadduth, and a person speaking with others while relieving themselves. So they mentioned that these two factors. In some narration of the hadith, it only mentioned that the thing that was being discussed, or the thing that was not to be, the thing that is not to be done, tahadduth, without mentioning takashuf, without the person that exposing oneself. So we have that difference regarding, and in some narration mention takashuf, that a person, what the thing that is forbidden or disliked is the person who expose themselves, so the person who expose themselves. So you find that ittirab in the matan is a hadith discussing two matters that is not to be done, which is exposure of oneself, and second, speaking to others while relieving of oneself. Or some narration mention only the person speaking while relieving of themselves, and some narration mention only the person exposing himself while relieving of themselves in that state. So they mentioned fi ittirab fil matan, there's ittirab fil matan, there's a strong difference in the wording in the hadith. So as we mentioned, Ibn Daqiq al-Eid rahimahullah ta'ala, that he mentioned the hadith is actually the hadith of Jabir, and that it is collected by Ibn Sakan. So of the ulama that all the hadith to be da'if based upon some of these factors, and some of the ulama all the hadith to be hasan. Some of the ulama all the hadith to be hasan. So you have that discussion regarding the hadith, but of those who have majority, the hadith, the majority, all the hadith to be da'if. So you have Ibn Qattan, all the hadith to be authentic, and also Ibn Sakan, also all the hadith to be authentic. Ibn Hajar rahimahullah more indicate concerning huwa ma'lul, that hadith is somewhat, it is critiqued and have weaknesses. So he mentioned this after mentioning a statement of those. So that's concerned that discussion regarding this particular hadith that have been mentioned here by as the topic. So as for the topic of this hadith, that this hadith is discussed concerning that it is forbidden, nahi, and takashuf wa tahadduth. That this hadith is discussed for two matters, that one is not to do while one is relieving of themselves, or a person passing, defecating, that passing of stool, that a person should not communicate, speak to others while doing such act, and also the person should not expose of oneself, not to expose of oneself. So this is what is mentioned by the hadith here, where it mentioned regarding إِذَا تَغَوَّتْ. So it mentioned that إِذَا تَغَوَّتْ, that the person is passing of stool, rajulani, and they mentioned regarding concerning al-rajulani, that is also applied to, where it is, the hadith mentioned rajulani, but also applies to two female, or a male and a female. So two female relieving of themselves and speaking to each other, they consider it, but even that also applies, or a male and a female, and that's even worse, except for maybe a case of a husband and a wife. So in all cases regarding two individual speaking, communicating themselves and exposing themselves while they're relieving of themselves, then this is something which is, that it mentioned that this is something is displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then also they mentioned concerning al-fadh of the hadith, they mentioned la taghawwat, we mentioned taghawwat, yani regarding concern the person relieving of himself regarding, as they say, passing of stool, defecating. So taghawut is the person that relieving of himself of this filth. Then Ar-Rajulan, as mentioned, that even though the hadith mentioned 2 male, but also applies to also 2 female. So also to apply to 2 female, also doing the same thing, or a male and a female. So in any case, 2 individual relieving of themselves, then they should not speak, nor should they expose themselves to each other. Yatawarath, as mentioned, regarding concern that a sitter, regarding the person that one should not expose of themselves, so one should try to not to expose of themselves and to hide themselves from each other. وَلَيَتَحَدَّثَانِ, and also for them not to speak to each other while relieving of themselves. So as for what is mentioned regarding the ahkam that can be taken from the hadith, that Shaykh Abdullah Fawzan حفظه wa ra'ahu, that he mentioned, يستدل بهذا حديث من قال بوجوب الستر الإنسان وأدم تحدثه مع شخص آخر حال قضاء الحاجة. So from this hadith, of those who take the position that this hadith is show that it is wajib, it is compulsory, that one should not expose, but one should hide themselves, conceal themselves from other people while they are fulfilling the call of nature, and also that they are not to engage in conversation with others while relieving themselves. So as concerning this, the hadith is discussed concerning this particular matter. So of the ulama who lean towards it is haram to do so, and regarding this matter, and they said it is something which is haram, or something we mention inna Allah yamkut. So they mention inna Allah yamkut ala dhalik. So it indicates that something is displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wal maqt is where something is this. Some said shiddatil ghadab. So al maqt is a form of ghadab, but also intense ghadab. So it's an intense type of ghadab, as mentioned by Zajjaj and also Ash-Shinkiti regarding al maqt, shiddatil ghadab, and also they mentioned regarding that in the Arab ghadab ash-shadid. So a person is severely angry, upset, that's considered to be maqt. So, and in this discussion, they mention regarding of the ulama who take towards these views, but they mention concern that jumhur of the ulama, that they take this hadith to understand this hadith in light of concerning that these acts, it is something which is they mention disliked. So it is something which is disliked. Hamad al-jumhur ala karahiyya, that it is disliked for a person to speak or to not conceal oneself during, or more so regarding speaking during the act of relieving of oneself. So they mentioned jumhur that it is something which is disliked to be done. They mentioned Ibn Mufli rahimahullah regarding a person speaking, conversing while relieving of oneself, that jumhur of the ulama, that they see that something which is the person qillatul adab, as a sign of the person who have poor manners. So the sign of a person with poor manners, they said bad manners. Where a person said qillatul haya, that a person also is not known to be one who is shy, embarrassed about anything, because he would, so in doing of this act of speaking while fulfilling the call of nature. But jumhur of the ulama say what is apparent from the hadith, that to speak while relieving of oneself is haram, to speak to others. But I mentioned that with this, that jumhur of the ulama, so what is the apparent ruling that can be taken? It is something which is haram, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He hates of this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is angry in doing this. That I mentioned that even though with this, that jumhur of the ulama, they take the ruling that it is something which is makruh, that it is disliked for a person to speak. So in this case of speaking to others while relieving of oneself, it is taken by a majority of the ulama that it is disliked to be done. And they said the reason why they have come to that ruling is because they said the sarif, I'm saying it is something which is haram, totally haram. They said that hadith 1 is discussed. There's a discussion regarding the authenticity of the hadith where of those who are the hadith to be da'if. So Ibn Mufti rahimahullah, you have mentioned that as mentioned before, that أن النهي إذا وردت في الحديث متكلم فيه, that if anything of nahi, of something being forbidden, is mentioned in hadith, that hadith is under some scrutiny regarding its authenticity. He mentioned فإنه يحمل على qara, then what is taken from hadith is that thing become disliked, not fully haram. So if the hadith is under intense scrutiny and discussion, and the meaning of hadith that something is forbidden, then because the hadith is considered to be da'if, then that thing that is said to be forbidden, it is taken in light of it being disliked. It is taken as it being something which is disliked. وَقَوْلُ بِالتَّحْرِيمِ هُوَ اختيار. But some of the ulama say it is something which is haram. Of those Shawkani who take the view that it is something which is haram for one to speak while relieving of oneself. So Shawkani have taken that position in his book, Nil Autar. And as from what is the apparent, and also take the view that is something of those who also take the view that also they owe that is something which is from the Kabair al-Zunub. It's from a major sin. Because the person is under the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is under. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is this severely displeased and angry with the person who does such. So the oath is something is a major sin. Also they mentioned that Ibn Mufti rahimahullah also said regarding concerning that he has not come across annahum sarahu bil karar, that Jumhur of the ulama say it is something which is disliked. Then they mention وأنه لم يجد أحد. Ibn Mufti rahimahullah mentioned that he hasn't found anyone minhum ذكر تحريم, that have said it is something which is totally haram. So Ibn Mufti rahimahullah mentioned that there is none that he has come across from the ulama that have said that this act of speaking while relieving of oneself is completely haram, even though the evidence cannot prove towards this, but none have taken that position. Then I mentioned Imam Ahmad rahimahullah have stated قال صالح سألت أبي عن كلام في الخلاء, that Ahmad rahimahullah, his son Saleh, that he said that I asked my father regarding speaking while the person in the area of the toilet, relieving of oneself, فقال يقرأ. Ahmad rahimahullah قال يقرأ, it is dislike. وقال إسحاق ibn Ibrahim سألت, another who have asked Ahmad rahimahullah, سألت أحمد عن كلام في الخلاء. So another person who is Ishaq ibn Ibrahim, that he said I've asked Ahmad rahimahullah regarding this matter, regarding speaking while the person relieving of themselves. فقال لا ينبغي له أن يتكلم. It is not befitting for a person to speak. Then I mentioned that this type of terminology of Ahmad rahimahullah, it indicated something which is tahrim. It indicates لا ينبغي له, that it is not befitting. This indicate that what he's saying is something which is haram. It is haram. Both of the mention of those of the latter scholars, Ash-Shawkani rahimahullah, take the position that it is haram. So that's concerning the person speaking while relieving of himself, as we have discussed previously regarding the person exposing of himself, that also that is in front of others, then this is haram to be done. To expose oneself in front of others, then it is haram to be done in relief of oneself, and we already discussed that matter. So as for speaking while relieving of oneself, then as we mentioned, it is the ulama, Jumhur of the ulama, state that it is something which is disliked. So on this discussion, that also Sheikh Abdullah Fawzan, Hafidullah Ta'ala, he mentioned regarding concerning that of this matter, the person should pay attention regarding that is a name from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have allowed a person that is able to can remove from himself these things, that a person able to can remove of this filth from himself. And that's from a name from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for a person can make use of the toilet, there is a name from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And by this, then he mentioned that the thing the person take in of eating and of the drink, that of those things that he benefit from, and of those things of the waste, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow that waste to be removed from his body. So it's something from the name from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he mentioned about a person then that he should be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala regarding of this bounty. And of this, that a person also not to be engaged in speech while he's going through this act of relieving of himself. Then also the Shaykh, he mentions that there's situations where the person may be in this state of fulfilling the call of nature, but the person is allowed labas for a person to speak. So if it's a case of necessity, a case of need, then the person able can communicate to others while they're fulfilling the call of nature. And he gave the example regarding Mambab al-Irshad al-Ama, that a person giving some irshad, some advice to a person, caution to a person who may need so, maybe a child and others, so the person may do so. Or the person may be in the toilet and he may need paper. He may ask of something or water. He may call to someone outside to fetch him of water and the like. So in case of need, then the person is allowed to do so. But not for the person to have just, that the person to have just general conversation, to communicate in a casual way to others while inside the toilet. So having a casual conversation is what is being discussed. Then also they discuss regarding concerning with this hadith, regarding concerning matter regarding hadith, إثناء قضاء الحاجة أو تحدث, the person who speaks, communicate, have a conversation while they are fulfilling the call of nature. That I mentioned, it fall into two categories. تحدث إثناء قضاء الحاجة على قسمين, that it falls into two categories. The first category, kalam, so the person speaking while he's carrying out this act. They mention kalam بما فيه ذكر الله. Kalam ما فيه ذكر الله. So kalam, speaking, speech that involve things with the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, things that remember mention of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They mention regarding concern, this is makruh. So regarding mentioning Allah while relieving of oneself, they mention that is something which is disliked in the jumhur of the ulama. And the proof of this is the hadith of, that is mentioned here regarding the hadith of Abu Sa'id and the hadith of Jabir that have been mentioned. And other hadith of this nature. And other hadith, they mention as more explicit regarding concern, more authentic. They mention Jafi Sahih Muslim, the hadith of Imam Muslim rahimahullah, min hadith Ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma, قال أن رجلا مرة, a person went by Rasulullah عليه الصلاة والسلام يبول, and the Prophet ﷺ was urinating. فسلم, and the person, he gave salam to the Prophet ﷺ, ولم يرد عليه, and the Prophet ﷺ did not respond to him. So this hadith is authentic, where the Prophet ﷺ did not respond to that person who gave him salam because he was urinating, passing urine. So the Prophet ﷺ did not respond. So the person spoke, but the Prophet ﷺ did not spoke. Then he explained to him that the Prophet ﷺ did not speak because he did not want to mention as-salam as it involved the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or things of that nature, by saying assalamu alaikum wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. So he didn't want to mention of those words while giving a salam, things of Allah name being mentioned. That's of and also you have other hadith of that nature, in the Abu Dawud, the Prophet أنه سلم على نبي الإسلام, a person that أنه سلم على نبي الإسلام, the person gives salam to the Prophet الإسلام وهو يبول ولم يرد عليه, and the Prophet الإسلام did not respond to his salam. The hadith in Abu Dawud ونسائي Ibn Majah بإسناد Sahih. So you have that discussion regarding the Prophet الإسلام did not respond to the person or those who gave him salam. So it shows that matters regarding it is makruh, as some mention haram for one to do so. The next type of kalam is speech regarding umur ad-dunya, amr ad-dunya. Kalam fi al-amr, amr ad-dunyawiyya. So things regarding general talk, not I said non-religious speech. So general talk, the person asking for toilet paper to be brought, the person asks as the stove turned off. So things of the dunya, asking for asking for other things that are things of the nature of the dunya. They mention regarding, as for this matter, for other things outside Allah's subhanahu wa ta'ala name being mentioned, they mention وَهَذَا قَرِيَ حَيْثًا, and that jumhur of the ulama that take the position that also this also is disliked. So speech that are general speech that does not have any religious words, that also this is disliked. They mention regarding concern that position taken by jumhur, a majority of the ulama. لأنه ليس من الأدب. It said the reason, they said this is not from al-adab. This is not from a person who was known to be of good character and good manners. So they mention that, and also the person that is not of that type of of level of intelligence and reasoning that is not of the people of such description. And I mentioned regarding concern also the evidence they usually said the hadith mentioned لا يتحدثا, that also I mentioned لا يتحدثا, that he is not to speak, that both are not to communicate between themselves, لا يتحدثا. And this is, they said that hadith is that hadith is general, without distinguishing between things of the deen and things of the dunya. So the hadith is general, لا يتحدثا. So I said based upon this, also mentioned لا يتناجى, so no form of speech between both, and it didn't distinguish between general speech and things of religious nature. So they mentioned that, so with this, that hadith will be general and will include everything, all things regarding religious speech or non-religious speech. Even the hadith is ضعيف. So based upon that, they said that they come to the conclusion that something, it is dislike. And I mentioned لا نعلم خالهم من أهل العلم قال بتحريم الكلام إثناء قضاء الحاجة. As we mentioned, that there is nothing clear from the ulama, or majority of the ulama, that it is explicitly haram for a person to speak while he's fulfilling the call of nature. As we mentioned that some do of them, the statement of Ahmad that could be taken from this, and also of that of Shawkani. But overall, I mentioned is something which is dislike for a person to speak of things of religious nature, speak of mentioning of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or his prophet, or things regarding things of the dunya. So that's concerning that discussion regarding this particular hadith. As for the hadith, it mentioned two main matters regarding those matters relate to speaking and relieving of oneself to others, and second, that a person exposing oneself while relieving of oneself, and we already discussed that particular matter. So that inshallah ta'ala will come to an end regarding this session regarding this hadith that is mentioned by Ibn Hajar rahimahullah in his book Bulugh al-Maram, in the bab Qada al-Haja, in the area, in the chapter heading of Qada, or the topic of Qada al-Haja, relieving of oneself, or mannerism relating to toilet manners. So that inshallah ta'ala will end this discussion and continue in the next session with the hadith that follows. With this inshallah ta'ala will end. وبالله تعالى توفيق وهذه إلى السبيل والآخر دعوانا الحمد لله العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. How long was that?
42 minutes.